here's the SEC tiebreakers. So everybody that's asking, oh my God, if I'm an LSU fan, if I'm an A&M fan, here they are in order. The first one is obvious, and it's going to be like this for every one of us. Head-to-head among the tied teams. If you're tied and you played head-to-head, the winner of the head-to-head matchup in the regular season is going to go, and they should. The second is record versus common conference opponents. So the teams that you played and the teams that they played, who had the better record? I don't think it would go past that, but they have to make rules for if it goes past that. And here's where it gets, like Dr. Emporium's Wonder Distorium, whatever the hell that thing's called. So your record against the highest team in the standings that both teams have played. All right, if y'all both played a top team, whoever did better in that game is going to go. And it's going to go in order from that top team to the second best team y'all both played to the third best team y'all played, because they say, and failing that, proceeding downward through other common opponents. So then, God forbid it gets past that. And this is the SEC. It's the cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents for each tied teams. Essentially, strength of schedule. That's what it is. Then we get past that. Capped relative scoring margin versus all conference opponents. All right, it's a metric that is derived by comparing the team's points scored and allowed to the opponent's average points scored and allowed per an appendix in the tie-breaking rules. And then the last one, Blaine gets to fight both of you. No, it's random draw of the tied teams. That's the Billy Bob Thornton Friday Night Lights. Let's meet at a Buc-ee's and figure it out.
Okay, so right now, Georgia and Texas A&M are the two top teams in the SEC. There's 5 one-loss teams. So as we sit here now, would Georgia play Texas A&M in the conference championship?
If Georgia wins out and Texas A&M wins out, Georgia and Texas A&M will play in the SEC championship.
Because Georgia would have beaten Tennessee, who has 1 loss right now, and Texas A&M would have beaten Texas, and obviously Georgia would have beaten Texas.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay. All right. You ready to go to Big Ten?
Let's go to Big
A
Ten.
lot of similarities here, except there is no scoring differential at the bottom. So I'm just going to read this straight off the Big Ten's website. If 2 teams are tied in the Big Ten standings, conference games only, the following steps will be taken until a determination is made. 1, the tied teams will be compared based off head-to-head matchups during the regular season. That's obvious, right? Usually we're getting to tie-break scenarios because there's no head-to-head, though. Number 2, the tied teams will be compared based on record against all common conference opponents. Some similarity there with the SEC. 3, the tied teams will be compared based on record against common opponents with the best conference record, and then proceeding through the common conference opponents based on the order of finish within the conference standings. Number 4, the tied teams will be compared based on the best cumulative conference winning percentage of all conference opponents. Basically, this is bringing in strength of schedule, right? But you're only taking into consideration conference games. 5, the representative will be chosen based on the highest ranking by Sports Source Analytics team rating score metric following the regular season. I did pull up the Sports Source Analytics website. Some of you can go to that. It's kind of interesting, even though I think most conferences are hoping it never gets to a point where that website ever has to be brought up. And then final point, number 6, the representative will be chosen by random draw among the tied teams conducted by the commissioner or a designee. So the Friday Night Lights treatment. All right. So I wanted to talk right now. If the Big Ten championship game were played today, it would be Oregon and Indiana. Both those teams are undefeated in the conference. Those are the only 2 undefeated teams. But here's a scenario that I wanted to lay out for you. The Buckeyes already have the head over Penn State, and that's Penn State's only loss, and the Buckeyes are going to play Indiana. So let's assume that the Buckeyes beat Indiana, and that's their only loss throughout the season. And then let's say that Oregon goes unbeaten. And then let's say that the Buckeyes lose another one. Let's say they lose to Michigan at the very end of the year. I know that may seem laughable to some, but still a rivalry game. Michigan has some good players. That would give the Buckeyes their second conference loss, right, to Michigan and to Oregon. So they would be out of it. Oregon's going to go to the conference championship game because they're undefeated. That leaves a 1-loss Indiana and a 1-loss Penn State who don't play each other, and they both lost. So there's no head-to-head you can take into consideration, and they both only lost to the Buckeyes. That's where you could start to play out some of these scenarios when it comes to cumulative conference opponents and win percentage and basically having the strength of schedule. And I did look up here. Penn State and Indiana will play 5 common conference opponents, and that's where they'll get into some of these tiebreakers.
And obviously they would all have won those, right? So it does come down to that cumulative scoring margin or whatever.
Exactly, because you're only in this scenario if you've beaten most of the other teams that you've played.
I mean, that could happen though.
Yeah,
like that to me, that's not that's not some Willy Wonka ass thing that. I mean, if Indiana beats Ohio State, all hell's about to break loose in this thing now. All hell's about to break loose.
Well, in that scenario, they would have lost to the Buckeyes, though. They would have lost. Yeah. But, yeah, if they beat them, then, yeah, that's a whole nother scenario.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's walk into the Big 12. A lot of same things here. The only thing real differences I like is you go to number 5, and the number 5 is a point differential in conference games. In certain cases, a point differential scoring margin across all Big 12 conference games may be used to break ties. Then you go to 6. It's the highest college football ranking. If a tie remains, the team with the highest college football playoff ranking would move forward. And obviously, at the end of that, it's a Friday Night Lights situation. We're going
really okay. So hold on, you're talking about the Big 12 right now,
correct?
Is that right? Okay, so Jake, in the SEC and in the Big 12, both of those conference have a scoring margin caveat, right? So if it behooves you to beat teams as badly as you can in conference, right? For both of those,
correct.
Okay,
yes.
And then what you're saying, Blaine, is for the Big 12 that they actually have a clause that takes into consideration the college football playoff ranking after all the games have been played.
Number
Which
6.
to me is kind of, I get why they did it, but you're doling it out to the committee now. Like now you can put the blame on the committee, which isn't a stupid thing to do. And again, I don't hate it, but I don't see that anywhere else. I didn't see it in the SEC. So like I got, and I want to get to the ACC tiebreakers. I just want to read, like you want to talk about where that 4th or 5th tiebreaker may be needed. It's going to be in the Big 12 because listen to the conference overall record. BYU's 5-0, take them out of it. Iowa State's 4-1. Colorado's 4-1. Kansas State's 4-2. Texas Tech is 4-2. Cincinnati's 3-2. Arizona State's 3-2. West Virginia's 3-2. So, like, there's a lot of things that could happen in this conference. Guys, Colorado plays Texas Tech this week.
Yep.
Iowa State and Kansas State still have to play each other.
Last game of the season, right?
Yeah, so if Kansas State beats Iowa State and Colorado wins out, Colorado's going to be in the Big 12 championship.
Which is, you want to talk about.
That's why last weekend was so massive for them.
That's exactly right.
And they didn't even play.
All right, I want to get to the ACC. The first one is head-to-head. The second is win percentage versus common opponents, so just like the SEC. The third is win percentage versus common opponents based on their order of finish, right? So you're breaking ties based on the results against the best team in the standings, which is the same thing as the SEC. The fourth is the combined win. So the second is your win percentage versus common opponents. All right, this is the ACC, but the fourth is the combined win percentage of conference opponents, of the ones that you've played. And then the next one, the fifth, is the team with the higher rankings according to the team rating score metric released at the conclusion of the regular season games. Okay, and then the last one is basically y'all meet up like on Anchorman 2 and all the news channels fight it out to see who wins. It's a draw. This is the funniest part, though. It's a draw administered by the ACC commissioner or the commissioner's designee in case he's like, no, you do it. You draw it, right? So and you look at the ACC standings, Miami's 5-0, SMU's 5-0. They went out. It's easy peasy. But then you got Clemson that's 5-1. Pittsburgh is 3-1. All right. Louisville's 4-2. Syracuse is 3-2. Virginia Tech's 3-2. So there is some similarities to the Big 12 a little bit, but there are 2 undefeated teams in conference with Miami and SMU. And don't let SMU play in that ACC championship.
Yeah, I can't believe you talked about SMU this much.
I know. I'm afraid to talk about them. I'm scared to talk about them because I don't want to jinx it. Because I'm telling you. I'm just telling you guys, hell's coming with me if SMU plays. If they're 11-1 and I had them playing Miami, who would be undefeated. All right, in there. I'm going to be hell on that.
I don't even know if I'm going to show up that.
How do you guys feel about one of the metrics being point differential so that you are sort of encouraged to beat teams as badly as possible?
I'm fine with it. You know, it's like Cam Newton said, if you don't want me to dance, don't let me score. I like that a lot better than a coin flip.
Well, sooner or later, guys, you just run out of things that you can use as a tiebreaker.
True.
Yeah.
You
That
know,
is
like,
true.
in the point, we're going to have to meet in the driveway. You bring your two biggest guys. I'll bring my two biggest guys. We'll see who goes to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And in natural conversations like the ones we have every day, and we get to call it our profession, but people around the country are having them in bars and cigar shops all over the place, is, well, the team A beat team B worse than team C beat team B. People are talking about that all the time. And to your point, Blaine, it's just like at some point you run out of things to compare, right?
Well, is this the only example we have of the transitive property actually having material value?
Well, when it's down at 0.5, 6, or 7, which it pretty much was in the two examples y'all gave.
Yeah, that's true. I don't think we'll get past 2 in any of these. And if we do, I think it's most likely going to come out of the Big 12 or the SEC, because I think it's a very small chance that SMU and Miami lose, and then, you know, Ohio State as well on the way out, even though Indiana's a problem.
Hello there, viewer. Thanks for your time. Please hit that subscribe button. We'd really, really appreciate it. You guys are the best.